Through a voiceover, Odd Thomas introduces us to his small town, Pico Mundo. He talks about his life growing up with a mother with mental issues. He stands in his corridor when he sees the ghost of Penny Callisto. So Odd follows Penny to Marigold Lane, where he finds Harlow Landerson driving. Harlow tells him not to touch his car because he loves his car. So Odd replies that he wishes the car could love Harlow back. Suddenly, Odd removes the keys from the ignition and tells Harlow there's dried blood in his pants pocket. Harlow, alarmed, tries to start his car before realizing there's no key there. Penny touches Odd and shows him how she died. During the night, Harlow took a piece of white felt which he used to collect some of Penny's blood after killing her. And by now, Harlow's agitated, so he jumps out the car and starts to run, with Odd giving chase. They run through the neighborhood until they come to a pool party. He catches up to him and a fight begins. So they trash the place until Harlow sees a little boy on the house's balcony overlooking the pool and goes after him. Odd prevents him from getting to the boy, and the fight continues. The fight keeps going until Odd puts Harlow's head through a mirror, and when the police arrive, they take Harlow away. So Odd's sitting by the pool watching Penny approach. He believes in a higher power and the afterlife. Odd tells Penny, who's now sitting beside him, that she's going to go to a better place. He also apologizes for her life being cut so short. She kisses him on the forehead, stands, and disappears as she walks away. Odd doesn't know why the dead don't talk. The chief of police comes to meet Odd. He asks why he didn't come to him with his suspicions of Harlow. If he did, the police could have caught him without the destruction of property. Odd says Harlow would just do it again, and that this was the only way to catch him. To quell suspicions about Odd's gift, the police chief makes up a story about how Odd discovered Harlow was guilty of murdering Penny without bringing up the fact that he sees ghosts. So that night, Odd walks home and he hears something and stops. Odd looks up and sees the deserted street but doesn't see anything else. Suddenly, a man with blurry facial features appears, begging Odd to save him. Odd tries to run, but a dozen others with the same black and red uniform and crazy facial features start chasing him and beg him to save him. Together, they carry Odd, who asks who these faceless people are and why they're running.
Before we go on, like this video, smash the subscribe button and turn on that notification bell, or Slender Man will haunt your dreams.
A man dressed in black carrying an automatic rifle starts shooting at these people. So Odd tries to see who this person is, but he can't. The faceless people continue to carry him, but they're dropping one after the other as the shooter's cutting them down. So it comes down to Odd and the first faceless man that approached him. The man carries Odd to his house, but they're both shot before they get upstairs. The man struggles to get Odd to his room and lays him on the bed before Odd bleeds out. And in the morning, Odd wakes up from a trance. He checks his abdomen for signs of a gunshot wound, but nothing. He realizes it's a premonition for coming evil. A massacre in Pico Mundo, and he's the one that has to stop it from happening. Odd works as a short order cook in a diner. He shows off his cooking skills to Viola's adopted children while answering orders. And just then, Odd's girlfriend Stormy walks into the restaurant. Now, when they were younger, he recalls that both of them were given a fortune card, saying that they were destined to be together forever. Stormy takes him to a corner, telling him that she's unhappy with what he did the previous day. He tells her that he's not afraid of death. He's not ready to die yet. She smiles and kisses him, asking if he would throw himself off a cliff for her. He says he would. Stormy also asks if he would throw himself into a river of razor blades and lava juice, and he says he would. Man, he'll do anything for love. So Stormy sits beside the police chief, who's reading a newspaper, and as she and the chief are talking, Odd glances at the door and sees a creature walk into the diner. He calls them Bodax. We're suddenly flashing back to the past, where Odd talks to a guy who also sees Bodax, but nobody believes him when he tells him. So Odd tells him the best thing is not to tell anyone. The guy says when the Bodax finally notice, he sees him. He gives them the finger, and Odd tells them that if the Bodax know that he could see him, they'd kill him. Immediately after he says this, a truck hits the guy on the sidewalk. The scene rewinds to a point when Odd tells the guy that the Bodax would kill him, and Odd sees a Bodax possess the truck driver and swerve the truck to hit the guy. So back at the diner, Odd is trying to look without wanting to be seen. The Bodax walks around the customers, Odd watching his every movement as he cuts cucumbers. He watches until it comes to a spot where Stormy advises the chief on his upcoming date night. The Boddick comes in front of Odd, who tries to pretend he doesn't see it while talking to Stormy about how weird they both are. As she makes to leave for the diner with the chief, the Boddick leaves Odd and follows Stormy. As it's about to possess her, Odd calls out to her. As she turns to face him, the Boddick leaves Stormy and follows someone else. Odd plays it all off, telling her he's missing her already. He says that when the Boddicks show, it usually means bloodshed and carnage are not far behind. These things cause massive bloodshed and feed on it. Viola takes the odor of a man the Boddick is now stalking. Soon, more Boddicks enter the diner and surround the man, who's now inspecting the salt shaker. By the time the man leaves the restaurant, there are more than a dozen Boddicks following him. Odd wants to follow the man, but Viola stops him, telling him about a dream she had. She says she saw herself and a guy lying on the floor like they'd been shot. Odd's surprised by the dream, but he assures Viola that the dream means nothing and that she'll be fine. By the time they finish talking, the man with the Boddicks had disappeared. So Odd asks Viola what the man in her dream wore, and she describes him in the exact uniform. Odd says that he has the strange ability to find anyone he's looking for randomly. He says Stormy calls the ability psychic magnetism. He continues walking around town, looking for the man, until he comes to a mall, where Stormy is a manager at the ice cream parlor. They meet on a bench, Stormy bringing ice cream cones. She asks if he's here early because he misses her. He says he does miss her, but he's here looking for a creepy guy. Odd finds him, looking at a car. The Boddicks around him have now doubled in number. As the man walks around the mall, Odd tells Stormy he's never seen this many Boddicks in one place. As the man enters the ice cream parlor, Stormy enters after him to see what's going on. She reports back that he bought 2 gallons of ice cream, noting that he looks like he has fungus on his head. She said the man scared her, and asks if Odd can leave him alone. Odd says he has a gift, and he has to use it to protect people. She gives him the keys to her scooter and urges him to get back for dinner alive. As the man leaves the mall, one of the Boddicks turn around and look at Odd. Then a portal opens in the ground, and the Boddicks enter into it. Odd follows the man, who he now calls Fungus Man, all the way to his house. Now Fungus Man enters, drops his ice cream, and leaves. Odd breaks into the house, which is filthy, and as he looks around, he feels a blast of frigid air. He hears the screams of souls. Odd walks slowly down the corridor, exhaling the cold air, and as he opens the door, he sees frozen birds in cages. In the corner of the room, he sees a small hole in the wall, so he puts his hand through the hole, and something pulls him in. He pulls his hand out, and something black begins to spread in the room. He quickly realizes that there are Boddicks in that room, running out and hiding behind a door. A host of Boddicks run out the door, leaving the house through the window, and one of them suspects that someone is there and almost catches Odd. After the Boddicks leave, his phone rings, and it's Stormy. He's telling her everything he saw, and she demands that he leave the house. Instead, Odd goes back to the room and goes through Fungus Man's things. So the Fungus Man's real name is Robert Robertson, and he has something planned for the 15th of August, the next day. Robert Robertson. Awesome name. Anyways, as Odd rifles through Fungus Bob's things, someone arrives. He escapes through the window and is almost attacked by vicious dogs. But he ends up escaping. Odd goes to see the chief, telling him everything he found in Fungus Bob's house. But the chief says that he can't act without evidence. He does, however, instruct one of his officers, Bernd Eccles, to run a check on Fungus Bob. The check reveals that he moved to Pico Mundo 5 months ago, after the death of his mother. His record is clean, so Odd asks the chief how Fungus Bob died. But the chief says Eccles is still checking. And again, chief says he can't arrest Fungus Bob without evidence. So Odd gets out of the chief's house and goes to meet Stormy at the church for a picnic dinner. And they hold that picnic up at the church's bell tower. From this vantage point, he sees a furious Fungus Bob approaching. They run into the church looking for a route to escape, and both of them escape by the skin of their teeth. On the scooter, she calls the chief, who speaks with Odd. He tells the chief to go to the church and arrest Robertson, but the chief says vandalism isn't the same as the apocalypse, which is what Odd said Robertson would bring. He assured the chief that no one would forget tomorrow in a hurry. So both Stormy and Odd enjoy dinner at the diner when Ozzy, a friend of Odd's, enters and gestures to him. He gives Odd a steel heart. On their way out, Chief calls Odd. He and the police department are at the church, which is trashed. The chief says there are no fingerprints in the church, so there's no way to link Fungus Bob to the vandalism. Odd says he's going to look for Fungus Bob, but the chief says he should take Stormy home first. So Odd's unique magnetism takes him to a bowling alley, which makes him uncomfortable. The faceless people had bowling balls on their red and black uniforms. Odd tells Stormy that it can't be connected because these guys wear green and black uniforms and not red and black. So inside the bowling alley, he realizes that the staff had changed their uniforms. It's exactly like the type he saw in his vision. So he calls the chief, tells him to send some officers over to the bowling alley. But something's missing. He needs to see the bigger picture. So Odd is going to see Viola. And at Viola's house, he tries to refresh her memory of the dream she had. She said she saw many people dead and a lot of blood. They go to her daughter's rooms, and he sees a lot of buttocks in the room. When Viola asks him what's wrong, he says everything's fine. He talks of leaving the house and not letting anyone know. Now Odd gets back home, and he's in shock. A dead Fungus Bob is lying in his bathtub, with a murder weapon lying conveniently on the floor. So he realizes he's being set up. Instead of calling the police, Odd bundles up Fungus Bob and deposits the body in an abandoned prison on the outskirts of town. In the process of this bundling, he realizes there's no way Fungus Bob was alive when he attacked them at the church. He must have been a poltergeist. Now on his way back into town, the streets are filled with buttocks. And at the chief's house, someone's ringing the bell. He thinks it's Odd and goes to open the door. And as he opens it, someone shoots him in the chest. Chief is saved by the steel heart Ozzy forged for Odd. Odd gave it to him to wear over his chest, and it stopped 2 of the bullets. So Odd goes back to Bob's house to find his partners and see if he left any idea of his plans. He finds several severed body parts, including teeth, fingers, and heads. He also finds a furious Bob who tries to take punches at him. It doesn't work, but Bob starts making objects fly at Odd, and he finally escapes before the house explodes. Odd now, looking for clues, goes back to Bob's body where he finds a tattoo, P.O.D. That's the same tattoo he saw on Officer Varner. So Odd realizes that P.O.D. means Prince of Darkness. He hurries to find Officer Varner, his psychic magnetism leading him to the mall's basement. Armed with a baseball bat, he goes to the security control and preps an ambush for Officer Varner. As he comes out of the control room, Odd knocks him unconscious with that bat. And when Odd opens his mask, he realizes it's not Varner, but Eccles. So more than one person is helping Bob, and Odd wonders why he didn't see any Botics around Varner and Eccles, and realizes that the Botics have manipulated him all along. They knew he saw him. They just wanted to lead him on a wild goose chase. So he grabs Eccles' gun and goes to the mall. Now we're at the mall, and Odd's walking around looking for either the Prince of Darkness or Varner. He sees the staff at the bowling alley in their uniforms, sitting at a table. Then he sees Viola and her daughters also at the mall. He hurries to Viola and tells her to get out of there. Suddenly, a portal forms in the wall and a multitude of Botics rush through it. Odd's looking for the shooter when there's a shout about a gun and then a gunshot goes off. Odd's running towards the sound right in front of Stormy's ice cream parlor. And as he tries to stop the shooter, the Botics try to restrain him. The mass shooter sprays the ice cream parlor with bullets. Finally, Odd overcomes the hordes of Botics and kills the shooter. Now fearful, he's walking towards the ice cream parlor to see if his love is alright. And she's standing behind the counter, smiling at Odd, but not talking. Odd is about to say something when a ghost, Lisette, urges Odd to follow her. He also sees a Botic, meaning the nightmare isn't over. He walks to the dead shooter, removes the mask, and sees that it's not Varner. It's Kevin Goss, the man who helped Odd escape the dogs the first time he visited Fungus Bob's house. So Odd's heading down to the basement where there's a white van parked and locked. When he forces it open, he sees a massive bomb with less than 3 minutes to detonate. Varner walks towards the entrance as a Botic possesses him and lets him know Odd has found the van. Varner immediately opens fire, hitting a man trying to clear the place and just managing to hit a fleeing Odd. So Odd gets into the van, but he's hit again in the shoulder. And as he's driving the van out of the mall with the bomb timer showing just 44 seconds left, he's losing consciousness, but he's going. Now outside the van, Varner's hanging on, stabilizing himself, and shoots at Odd, forcing the van to swerve uncontrollably on the road. And just as Varner enters the van, Odd jumps out. and the van collides with a barrier and explodes with Varner in it. Odd loses consciousness. And when he comes to, he's in the hospital with Stormy at his side. And soon Odd becomes a celebrity. This whole time, Stormy's not talking, but she's always by his side. Finally, the chief tells him to face reality. Stormy was shot at the mall shooting, and then Stormy was with him as a ghost. Odd sees her as she is, in her uniform with bloodstains and bullet holes. They bid each other a teary and emotional farewell, and then she disappears. So he's walking through the desert up a hill, and he says he has about 60 years before he sees Stormy again. But he's a patient man, and still has a lot to do. We see him at the top of a hill, looking down at the Vegas lights. Odd Thomas was released back in 2013, produced by Fusion Films and the Summers Company. Those who starred in the movie were Willem Dafoe, Anton Yelchin, and Addison Timlin. If you had psychic powers like Odd, what would you have done with them? Send us your response in the comments with the hashtag CinemaRecap.